Hello, it's been a while since I've done something like this. I usually don't think to make deck profiles and stuff, but today I thought it was kind of special. I played in the Rarity Collection release event at my local OTS, and it was a lot of fun. It was the first OTS event that they were actually able to have because Konami had been kind of lax in sending them things to host OTS events with. So they're finally starting to get like prize mats and cool stuff like that in, and so I definitely went out to play, and I did pretty well. I placed second overall, 6 wins and only 1 loss, and it was to the guy who eventually won, who, you know, we'll talk about that kind of when we get there. But I wanted to share the deck profile as well as some of my thoughts on what I played, what I might do differently next time, and also maybe talk about the matchups. I usually like to do my deck profiles a little differently than most, so I'm going to start things off with the hand traps that I played because I think that that's kind of what gives you an idea about the format you're playing in. So I played Vanquish Soul. First time I'm posting something that's not about like Sky Striker or something on here. I played Vanquish Soul, which is kind of like a little bit more up-to-date Sky Striker, you could say. Engage to 3, please. And the first thing I played, of course, was 3 Ash Blossom. If you know anything about Vanquish Soul, apart from the fact that Ash is incredible and just a good hand trap, the main thing that matters is actually up here, the attribute. Ash is a fire, which is very good for the deck. So playing Ash was really important. Ash was great all day. Really enjoyed it. Next up comes Ghost Belle and Haunted Mansion. So I played 3 Ghost Belle. Again, what really matters up here is that Earth attribute. And for sure, it was definitely useful. Ghost Belle, it's kind of hard to say for certain how well it performed. When it came up, it was generally pretty good, but sometimes it just wasn't really the hand trap I wanted. But there's also just not much else I really would want to play that actually lines up with the deck's attributes. So Ghost Belle was okay. This is really the format litmus test, and, you know, again, I'm doing this to win, so we're out here playing Dimension Shifter. This card was completely insane every single time that I saw it. Every time I saw it, it was a ridiculously stupid blowout card, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the matchups and kind of what happened, so. But this card's broken. Please ban this, Konami. It's really stupid. Then finally, I played Infinite Impermanence. The main reason that this was good today was because I did play Rescue Ace at least once, and so Infinite Impermanence definitely helped a lot there. It was also pretty good against Chimera, I'll be honest. Really saved my life in a couple games there. It was pretty good. Imperm is good. Like, it's a good card. The only problem is that this is a trap card, not a monster, so the attribute doesn't really matter. It doesn't have one, so. It was good, though. I enjoyed playing it. So those were the hand traps. Now I'm going to actually talk about the actual engine that I played. And I think that showing the hand traps also gives you a little bit better idea about the deck because the attributes matter a lot in Vanquish Soul. And I'll talk a little bit about that when we talk about the monsters. So we'll start things off with 3 Vanquish Soul Razen. This guy's the most important card in the deck. If you see this guy, you can actually win the game. If you don't see this guy, you have an uphill battle. This guy is the most important card in the archetype by a lot. So if you aren't familiar with Vanquish Soul, if you're a little bit, rusty on your Yu-Gi-Oh, Vanquish Soul is an archetype of monsters that kind of form a control strategy. It's kind of all about gaining advantage, incremental advantage in different ways, and that'll make a lot of sense when we talk about the monster effects. Razen essentially acts as both a searcher and also an offensive tool because he allows you to pop your opponent's monsters that are in the same column as him. But it matters what attributes you have because in order to use his effects, he needs the Vanquish Soul monsters need certain attributes. Fire, Dark, and Earth monsters are the ones that synergize with the archetype. And so it's important to be playing a good balance of those archetypes to be able to actually use their effects. Razen is insane. You can't play any less than 3. You want to see him every single game. After that, I played 2 Vanquish Soul Dr. Madlove. Razen searches the monsters. Dr. Madlove searches the spells and traps. But the thing is that the Vanquish Soul spells and traps, their quality is a lot less than their monsters. If there was a better spell to search off of Dr. Madlove, I'd be playing 3 Dr. Madlove. But the truth is that you want to be searching monsters. So Razen is crucial. Dr. Madlove has a lot of utility in certain scenarios. Like, she can manipulate the attack and defense in monsters, which is pretty nice, permanently lowering them by 500. And then she can also return the monster on the field with the lowest defense back to the hand, which is useful for sure. It's just not Razen useful. So I played 2, and I honestly never missed the 3rd. And of the level 4 or lower brigade, the last one I played is 1 Pantera. Pantera was decent. I never wanted to really open this card, but searching her always felt pretty good, and having her for some fringe cases where she's useful. Pantera handles destroying spells and traps in the same column that she's in, which is pretty useful in some scenarios, but not so often that I want to see her like I do want to see Razen. Pantera's nice, a nice to have, but a one of. After that is the higher level monsters. Vanquish still has a lot of high level monsters, which makes me compare this deck to Flu and how it can potentially brick, but one guy that is relatively new is Vanquish Soul Jiaolong. So Jiaolong, this is the guy that really has transformed the deck into a bigger competitor, because Jiaolong is probably one of the better search targets for Razen, because Razen basically on his own enables you to summon this guy. You can summon Razen whenever you reveal a monster in your hand for a Vanquish Soul monster effect. So you show your opponent the attributes of the effect you want to activate, and then you can summon this guy in the next available chain afterwards. But what Jiaolong really does for the deck is he's an extra searcher. If you have 2 fire attribute monsters in your hand, Jiaolong searches any card in the archetype, which is crazy. He gets you anything that you need, and unlike Razen, his effect is a quick effect on either player's turn. So part of this deck is just using Jiaolong to just search again and again and again and fill your hand with the right attributes that you need and just overwhelm your opponent with sheer advantage. And he's helped along in that mission by Vanquish Soul Heavy Borger. And between Jiaolong and Heavy Borger, it kind of forms why this deck is really fun to me, is because if you know that I really like Sky Striker, well, Heavy Borger, if you reveal a dark monster in your hand, you get to draw a card. So whenever you're resolving both Jiaolong and Heavy Borger, you're essentially doing a Sky Striker Engage, except it's on either player's turn, because Vanquish Soul Heavy Borger can allow you to draw a card on either player's turn. So that's a big part of why I'm playing so many hand traps as well. I'm playing 12 hand traps because I'm going to draw into them to help me out-advantage my opponent. The other thing Heavy Borger does is that he also helps you win in time. He wins in time, and he burns your opponent to death. I never did end up winning in time today with Borger. Most of my games either we finished or we finished so fast that we didn't even get close to time. But there was one game where between attacking with Jiaolong, attacking with Borger, burning with Borger, I had put my opponent in range to be killed on Borger's turn, plus the burn from the trap card, and they just died immediately. The other thing that Borger does that one other card in the archetype really does is they allow you to dodge targeting. To summon Heavy Borger, unlike Jiaolong where he has to reveal cards, you target another Vanquish Soul monster you control as a quick effect, return that monster to the hand, then summon Borger. So this gives the deck a lot of resistance to common hand traps. So if your opponent goes Veiler or Imperm, target Razen, then you chain Borger, Razen returns to the hand, Borger comes to the field, and you still resolve the effect of Razen. It's great. Heavy Borger was just awesome all day, wouldn't play any less than 3. The final card in the archetype that I played that isn't a spell trap is Vanquish Soul Caesar Valius. This is kind of your boss monster of the deck. Caesar Valius requires 3 different attributes in your hand to really get his most potential off. You can either reveal an Earth to become unaffected by activated effects, or reveal 3 attributes in the hand, Fire, Dark, and Earth, and destroy a card on the field without targeting it, which is very powerful. It's just powerful removal that compounds on top of everything else to help you out-advantage your opponent. I play 2 Caesar Valius, mainly because if one gets banished or outed in some way that I can't get back from the graveyard, I'm kind of just boned. So playing 2 is kind of important to me. So if I lose one, I have another one. 2 comes up sometimes, and so enough where it's game determinative. It's also playing 5 of this guy, 5 of the targeting and bounce guys, because this guy can summon himself in the same way Borger can. You just target another one that's not the same guy, basically, return him to the hand. It just helps you dodge those hand traps. And there were a couple times today where I really wish I had one of these guys in hand, because I got like impermed and it sucked. Now, as for the spell traps in the archetype, Stake Your Soul is one of the best ones, but you'll notice that it's not a Vanquish Soul card because it doesn't have Vanquish Soul in the name. It can't be searched with Dr. Madlove, which is a huge blow to Dr. Madlove's utility. That said, Stake Your Soul is one of the best ways in the deck to get access to Razen, because if you have any fire attribute monster in your hand, you can reveal it for Stake Your Soul's effect and summon Razen from the deck. Stake Your Soul essentially just lets you reveal any monster in your hand that matches a Vanquish Soul attribute, and then summon a relevant monster from the deck. So you can reveal Ash Blossom, get access to Jiaolong or Razen. You can reveal Shifter, get access to Borger or Dr. Madlove, and so on. This card's really good. It just sucks it's not a Vanquish Soul card. For the cards that are Vanquish Soul cards, I'm playing one of each of these 3. Continue is a monster reborn that can also add to hand. It costs 500 life points to do so, and it's quick play. It's pretty good. It's very solid in the grind game and is sometimes very useful to extend into things like Zeus or other like Xyz type things. Vanquish Soul Dust Devil is an archetypal Book of Moon that it requires you to target a monster you control, Vanquish Soul monster you control, change its battle position, and then essentially Book of Moon monsters your opponent controls without targeting them up to the number of Vanquish Soul monsters that you control. So this can be like a multi-book, but it usually doesn't come up that way. Dust Devil's good, don't get me wrong, but I will say that it maybe underperformed today a little bit to the point that I'm thinking about cutting it. And seeing some other Vanquish Soul lists posted recently without this card does make me think it might not be the right choice for the format. In Kashtira format, this card was crazy because it was an archetypal Book of Moon you could search. But now, there's less decks that just died of a Book of Moon. That said, there are still some, but I don't know. This card could be cut. The card I will not cut is Vanquish Soul Snow Devil. This is a new card from Age of Overlord alongside Jiaolong. This card is kind of crazy and has saved my life so many times when playing it. Snow Devil allows you to reveal up to 3 different attributes in your hand and then resolve up to 3 different effects depending on how many attributes you revealed. You trigger all of these effects by revealing each one. So if you reveal 1, you summon a Vanquish Soul monster from your hand and then burn your opponent for 400. If you reveal 2 attributes, then you are making your entire field indestructible by card effects to the end of the turn. And that includes monsters that you summon after, as long as they're Vanquish Soul monsters. The final effect is that it destroys every monster on the field. It's a dark hull, but it doesn't apply to Vanquish Soul monsters because they're protected. So the way Snow Devil acts is it usually allows you to either get back into the game by summoning a Razen on their turn and then starting all the quick effect nonsense that this deck can do. Since pretty much every card in the archetype has quick effects that can be used on the opponent's turn, this can just act as a simple disruption on its own, or it can also just wipe the whole field apart from your field, putting your opponent in a shitty position. I really like this card a lot. There was one game I played where I got evenly matched down to this one card and then stayed in the game by summoning Razen off this thing. It was crazy. Now, as for the non-engine, there are a few non-engine cards that I'm playing apart from hand traps. The first is the Kashtira package, which is 3 Fenrir, Earth attribute. Fenrir is kind of self-explanatory. This card is just unbelievably good going first or second. So it's just a great slot in because it matches with the attribute. But I am playing 1 Kashtira Riseheart, which might seem odd because this card doesn't do much for the deck, except that attribute. So the play here is to special Fenrir and search this guy. If you have access to Razen, that's 2 fire attributes. You can Razen, search the Jiaolong, get the Razen back to hand with Rock of the Vanquisher, the extra deck monster we'll talk about in a moment, and then suddenly you can find yourself with 2 attributes and a Jiaolong that can continue searching. It allows you to really get a lot of advantage and a lot of bang for your buck off of that Fenrir. There are also some cases where this guy helps you extend into an Xyz. For instance, against Dark World, using this guy to make Abyss Dweller, kind of cracked. The last non-engine is just Rhoda, which just searches Razen, and then 3 Pot of Prosperity, which Pot of Prosperity went hard all day. I think there was only 1 Pot of Prosperity all day that was kind of mid, and even then it got me an imperm, which actually helped me win the game. In the end, So it didn't matter. It was still crazy. This card's broken. Konami's probably going to limit it. Or ban it. Hopefully they won't ban it. I did buy quarter century versions. That's the main deck. Now let's talk about the extra deck, though there's really only one topic in the extra deck that's super worth talking about, and that's this guy, Rock of the Vanquisher. This is the archetypal Link one, but it's not, again, you'll notice it's not a Vanquish Soul monster. Rock of the Vanquisher allows you, as a quick effect, to summon a Vanquish Soul from your hand or add a Vanquish Soul from your grave. One effect per turn, and only once that turn, but it is very powerful. You have that recursion back to your hand, as well as just being able to summon on your opponent's turn. There were some cases where just having this guy on field and then adding the Razen, passing turn, they play, I summon the Razen on their turn, and then I just start popping off on their turn. This is our turn, comrade, and this guy is what helps me smash the bourgeoisie, I guess. I say that, and I have a deck full of like high rarity cards. I'm actually the bourgeoisie. I'm actually the capitalist destroying the, revolutionaries. Well, we play a Baronne de Fleur. I don't think I ever summoned this once, mainly because you have to give up essentially either a Borger or a Fenrir and a hand trap to do this. Usually you're giving up 2 interruptions or a draw for 1 interruption. This card can come up in some like fringe scenarios, but I didn't summon it. IP Masqurena and Little Knight. I did summon Little Knight once, but these guys are just there because they're kind of the format tax. These guys are just really powerful. If you're in a position where you're able to summon them, they can often generate you a ton of value. I just didn't end up needing to use them too much. I played one Knightmare Phoenix because I think it's really funny to co-link this guy and get an extra draw. It did come up against Dark World. It did in the grind game where I was just like popping their gates and shit to stop them from like going off again on their turn. And then drawing into more hand traps to kill them with. I play a lot of Xyz because you have a good number of level 4 monsters in this deck. Baguska, never summoned it. Ixaton Knight, never summoned it. Summoned it once, did win me the game. King Dempsey, this guy was pretty sick because he does search Razen, and there was one game where I played where I really like comboed off and searched the Razen with this guy, and that did help me like really get into the game. Then I play a Zeus package. I would have won one match against a branded Chimera had I been able to make this, but he never came up really today, mainly because I just got stopped from making him. He would have been crazy in that one game, but I still ended up winning the match anyway. And then TY-PHON Sky Crisis. This guy would have won me one of my matches against against Dragon Link if I'd remembered to summon him, but I banished him off Prosperity because I didn't think to use him against it. But this guy does out-Borrel in Dragon, which is pretty sick. I like that a lot. So we'll remember not to banish him next time. The extra deck doesn't matter a ton in this deck. It really is about so much more about the main deck and the non-engine and then like your hand traps and stuff. So let's get into the side deck real quick. I played 3 Fantastical Dragon Phantasme. This was probably the best card in my side deck all day. Every time that I summoned this card, it was crazy and generally won me the game. This guy is nuts, and he's a dark. That's the big thing. Kurikara Div Incarnate, a very good card. I really like it in Vanquish Soul, mainly because of the fire attribute. But she did not do too much today. I never got into matchups where she was really that useful. So I'm thinking about possibly replacing her with Doggeran, the Mad Flame Kaiju again. I kind of go back and forth on Doggeran and Kurikara. Doggeran is nice because you just don't need your opponent to actually do anything. And it also has a very like silly interaction with Dr. Madlove where you can easily bounce the Doggeran back to hand and then like Kaiju them again. But this card's good. It was just the one time it really came up, my opponent was just not playing into it. So kind of felt a little awkward there. DD Crow. I was playing DD Crow on the side because I'm playing Shifter in the main, and I didn't really want to give up DD Crow because I really like this card in this format and in this deck. But honestly, this card should have been probably Droll and Lockbird. Not like that there are many situations where Droll and Lockbird would have made a difference over DD Crow. In fact, this guy performed just fine in the one time he really came up. But I think going forward, I'm going to try playing Droll and Lockbird on the side. I played Anti-Spell Fragrance in the side over Tikaboo. Now, you might, those of you who do know the Yu-Gi-Oh meta and do follow this deck and like are familiar with it, you're probably surprised that you never saw Tikaboo in this deck profile. There was no game today, really, where Tikaboo was the difference maker, except maybe when I played the last match against Dragon Link. But it's not like Anti-Spell would have really made a difference there either. Tikaboo might have, but there was really no guarantee of even seeing this card in that matchup because I didn't see the Anti-Spell. So if we're just, rearranging the slots, it's not like I would have seen the Tikaboo, so it doesn't really matter. But I kind of go back and forth on this. With Tikaboo, I can just shut some decks down completely, like Floowandereeze or Dragon Link or whatever. With this card, I don't lose to Triple Tactics Talents and Triple Tactics Thrust, which I hate losing to because your opponent just going Thrust for evenly in this deck is just the worst feeling ever. So, I don't know. I'm kind of back and forth on it. I mean, I like this card. It's won me some matches where it has come up, but Tikaboo has also won me matches. So it's kind of just which matches do I want to win? Do I want to die to Talents, or do I want to die to, Dragon Combo, I guess? And then I played this anti-back row package that I literally never sided in even a single time, but I'm too afraid of random backward decks or stun decks to take out. So that was the deck. I was generally happy with it because this was the most consistent I had really played with this deck up to this point. It's funny because I went to locals on Friday night and went 1-2 and then just dropped. But then I went 6-1 today, and I think it just really came down to the fact that today we got to play the game pretty much all the time, and we, made sure our opponent didn't. I don't know. It was just kind of a different day, Some days you poop the bed, some days you do really great. So my first round matchup was against Invoked Dogmatica Shaddoll branded. It was a deck that a student of mine actually has put together. It's not bad, but it certainly isn't meta. He also just did not know how to play against Vanquish Soul. Sided in Tikaboo against me, so that tells you kind of everything you need to know. It wasn't a difficult matchup. The kid is definitely got a lot of potential, but, he needs to practice a bit more. Round 2, I played against Dark World FTK, which is a deck that I really, really did not want to lose to because I lost to it over a week ago, and that was really what pushed me back on Shifter. So it is the Dark World players' fault that I'm on Shifter. If you want to blame anybody else, blame them. Those two games I played against the Dark World, I made Abyss Dweller turn 1 because I already knew what the guy was on. I only knew that because I played against him the last night and also won against him at locals. And so I was like, if he's on Dark World, I'm just going to make Abyss Dweller turn 1 and just shut him down. And it worked. And then game 2, we found Shifter, which was pretty nice. In round 3, we played against Tearlaments, and we opened Shifter both games. So we won that one pretty handily. Round 4, I was actually forced to play the game against Dragon Link, and it was a pretty tight best of 3. I saw Shifter in game 1, but not in games 2 and 3, and it was pretty intense. I would have won game 2, I think, had I remembered to summon Typhon, but it didn't matter in the end because I just out-advantaged him in game 3. Round 5 was against Horus Chimera, which actually was a pretty tough matchup. If you know anything about the Horus cards, then you know that King Sarcophagus protects Horus monsters against destruction that doesn't target, which is every Vanquish Soul effect, pretty much. It took a lot of work to win that matchup. It was a pretty intense grind in both games. Didn't see Shifter in either one, but I did take it 2-0. I think. I don't know. It's been a minute. No, it hasn't. It's been an hour. Did we play a game 3? I actually don't remember. All I know is that I did win. Then we went to Top Cut. I was undefeated in Swiss. It was pretty rad. Then I played against Bellstar Rescue Ace. I learned that deck does not like Shifter. And in game 2, my opponent made a pretty crucial misplay in playing into Razen and not summoning to the right column. And that kind of cooked him in the grind game. He ended up just lacking resources, and I had just too much. So going into the finals, I was 6-1. I hadn't bricked all day. I'd been playing out of my mind, dropping shifter, winning games, In round 3, we bricked, or in the finals, we just bricked 2 times in a row on Fenrir. Drew like 2 Fenrir in both games, and then like the last hand of the night was just embarrassing. It was like Fenrir, continue, heavy Borger, and Dust Devil. It was like just completely unplayable. Sucked. So we didn't get the mat. We did get a lot of packs though. Pulled a lot of ultis out of the Rarity collection. Pretty fire. That set is so fun to open. Highly recommend it. But yeah, I had a lot of fun. It was a fun tournament. Maybe my opponents who got shifter didn't think it was super fun. That tier limit player especially. 2 times in a row they went tier cash effect and I went shifter. And they were like, well, sometimes you're just better at the game, right? I like this deck a lot. In fact, I like this deck so much that I'm like blinging this thing out. I have a full collector's rare core. We've got the 3 25th Jiaolongs. We're starting to get like 25th staples. It's stupid. Do I like this deck more than Sky Striker? I like it more than Sky Striker when engages at 2. Maybe when engages at 3 and Eradicator Epidemic Virus is banned, I'll change my tune. But yeah, this deck reminds me a lot of Striker. It's kind of like Striker with monsters instead of spells. I just really like the way the deck like benefits from like hand traps and stuff. Like the fact that Ash is just so insane in this deck kind of is what made me like motivated to get the 25ths and just kind of like really like buy into this deck and like buy the expensive staples because I just like it so much. I have so much fun playing it. It's not fun when it bricks, and sometimes it can brick pretty hard, but I like the deck. I like the deck a lot. Now I'm just kind of rambling. It was a long day. Oh, long day. All right. I think that's about enough for me. One thing I guess I'll just throw out there is that if you've opened a ton of the Rarity collection and you have like super rare like stuff, staples and stuff that you just don't need, I am like trying to hunt as many of those things down as possible. Donations are very appreciated to the gaming club. A lot of my students are in desperate need of playsets of Ash. And I want to take this opportunity where Ash is like so cheap to try to help them get playsets. So if you open a bunch of Rarity collection, you're like me and you're really only interested in like the super high-end stuff, maybe consider like just, I don't know, DMing me on Facebook and being like, hey, I'll mail you some like super Ashes. And I'm like, that'd be awesome. Any other stuff like that, Ghost Spells, Shifters, like staple cards, Barons. Prospy's kind of money in super still, but all that stuff is super useful. It really helps a lot. I've had a lot of really generous donations from just people around here at my locals who are like, yeah, I got my like ulti Ashes here. Just take these commons. And I'm like, thank you so much. It means so much. It's so helpful. Anyway, that's about all for me. I hope you enjoyed listening to this. I hope maybe it was informative at all. And maybe I'll do another one of these sometime. I like talking about Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Yu-Gi-Oh is a ton of fun. I know I used to like do Pokemon stuff on this channel, but Yu-Gi-Oh has just become so important to me. It's such a fun game, and I love it a lot. See ya.